Recording in progress.
Please rise as you are able. I now call this meeting of City Council to order.
We acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe people include the Odawa, Ojibwe, the Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect for all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. You may be seated. Tonight's City Council meeting is being held with members of Council, the Executive Management Team, and the Deputy City Clerk in the Council chambers. Members of the Senior Leadership Team and other staff are available to answer questions in person and via video conference. The Council chambers remain closed to the public until further notice. Confirmation of the minutes. The first item on the agenda is the confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the City Council meeting held on March 28, 2022 have been circulated. Are there any corrections? Okay, seeing none, the minutes are adopted as printed and circulated. We have no awards and recognition, no reports from officer, or no deputations on committee reports. Is that correct? No tax applications, no communications. Committee reports. Councillor Jim Harris, I believe you have the motions.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Moved by myself, Councillor Jay Harris, and seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson, that the Planning Committee report dated March 29th, 2022, as circulated, be received.
Moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the Planning Committee report dated March 29th, 2022, as circulated, be received. There's an application for an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw for 315 and 323 Mapleview Drive West, and an application for a zoning bylaw amendment for 505, 511, 515, and 533 Yonge Street, Ward 8. Any comments or concerns? All in favor? Carried. Councillor Harris.
Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Jay Harris, seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee report dated April 4th, 2022, as circulated, be adopted.
Moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee report dated April 4th, 2022 as circulated be adopted. This includes the 2022 busking program pilot and emerging artists musicians program, the gate at Tyndale Park, Lake Simcoe support, and Stopping Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It's carried. Councillor Harris.
Thank you. Moved by myself, Jay Harris, and seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson, that Section B of the General Committee report dated April 4th, 2022, as circulated, be received.
Moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the General Committee report dated April 4th, 2022 as circulated be received. And this is the establishing of a Renters Committee. The item was lost at General Committee. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It's passed. Let's receive the report. Councillor Harris.
Great, thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Jay Harris, and seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson, that Section C of the General Committee Report dated April 4th, 2022, as circulated, be received.
Moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section C of the General Committee Report dated April 4th, 2022, as circulated, be received. This is receiving the report of the potential purchase of the Barrie Jail, which is an item that lost at General Committee. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It carries. Councillor Harris.
Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Jay Harris, and seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson, that Section A of General Committee Report dated April 11th, 2022, be adopted.
Moved by Councillor Jim Harris, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated April 11th, 2022 be adopted. Earlier tonight, we adopted the Community Revitalization Fund application supporting the downtown BIA. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It is carried. Councillor Harris.
Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Jay Harris, and seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson, that Section B of General Committee Report dated April 11th, 2022 be adopted.
Moved by Councillor Jim Harris, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the General Committee Report dated April 11th, 2022 be adopted. This is confidential labor relations employee negotiations matter. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It's carried. Oops. Councillor Harris.
Okay, thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Jay Harris, and seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson, that Section C of the General Committee Report dated April 11th, 2022 be adopted.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Jim Harris, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section C of the General Committee Report dated April 11th, 2022 be adopted. And this is a confidential personal information matter, staff position review. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It's carried. Is that it?
Thank you.
Oh, is there another one? Okay. Councillor Harris?
Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Jay Harris, and seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson.
Just 1 second. Oh, okay. I should have said opposed on that last one. Was anybody opposed? Okay. Sorry. Yep.
Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Jay Harris, and seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this
Nope.
day. And
Wait,
finally,
wait. No.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, we were finished. Okay. That takes care of all the committee reports. Got it. Deferred business, we have a direct motion, I believe. Yeah, direct motion. Do I ask Councillor Harvey to put it on? Yep, Councillor Harvey?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Harris. The title here says leave of absence of members of council, but it should actually read members of council and staff. One, that the Corporation of the City of Barrie, effective immediately, adopt a procedure whereas members of council who are on unpaid leave of absence be required to, 1, return all electronic devices and computers that are the property of the City of Barrie within 48 hours of the commencement of their leave until they return from their unpaid leave. 2, have their email suspended. 3, have their building access card suspended. 4, be relieved of all their duties and responsibilities. B, that if a member fails to comply with the policy, the Chief Administrative Officer or the Clerk to notify members of council as soon as possible via email. C, that any member currently on unpaid leave be afforded 48 hours to comply upon the adoption of this policy. When a member of the council fails to return the electronic devices assigned to them within the prescribed time frame, the Chief Administrative Officer or the Clerk is to notify council as soon as possible via email. That while unpaid leave, members continue to be bound by the City Council and Committee member of Code of Conduct. 3, sub A, that the city's mobile device policy be updated to reflect that city staff whom are away from their positions on an unpaid leave or away for a period that exceeds 90 days to return their equipment unless they are working from home as approved by the CAO, and B, that the policy in relation to returning electronic devices also pertains to those members of council whom do not get re-elected following the last official day in office, and C, that the Chief Administrative Officer advise council once the policy has been updated.
Moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Natalie Harris, that the corporation, 1A, that the corporation of the City of Barrie, effective immediately, adopt a procedure whereas members of council who are unpaid leave of absence be required to, 1, return all electronic devices and computers that are the property of the City of Barrie within 48 hours of the commencement of their leave until they return from their unpaid leave, and 2, have their email suspended, and 3, have their building access card suspended, and 4, be relieved of all their city duties and responsibilities. B, that if a member fails to comply with the policy, the Chief Administrative Officer or the Clerk notify members of council as soon as possible via email. C, that the member currently on unpaid leave, that any member currently on unpaid leave be afforded 48 hours to comply upon the adoption of this policy. When a member of council fails to return the electronic devices assigned to them within the prescribed time frame, the Chief Administrative Officer or the Clerk is to notify council as soon as possible via email. 2, that while on unpaid leave, members continue to be bound by the City Council and Committee Member Code of Conduct. 3A, that the City's mobile device policy be updated to reflect the City staff who are away from their positions on an unpaid leave or away from a period that exceeds 90 days to return their equipment unless they are working from home as approved by the CAO. B, that the policy in relation to returning electronic devices also pertains to those members of council whom do not get re-elected following their last official day of office. C, that the Chief Administrative Office advise council once this policy has been updated. You've heard the motion. Any comments or questions? Councillor Kungl, Councillor Harvey. Actually, maybe I'll let Councillor Harvey go first since it's his motion. So you would like to speak on it, I'm sure. So
Great. Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. The motion's pretty self-explanatory. This comes about when I recently became aware of our current policy and how outdated it is. It hasn't been updated in several years, and most of the policy actually only pertained to city staff and did not pertain to any of us around this table. I know this has been an issue in the past because I firsthand have seen a person that didn't get re-elected turning their equipment in long after the date that they would have been last in office. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, we deal with sensitive information, and to think that people that are A, not re-elected or decide not to run for election again, or people that are on unpaid leaves, whether that's a member of council or a member of staff, I don't believe that they should have access to that information. And I've confirmed my suspicions by speaking with the clerk in regards to this when I did start making my inquiries in regards to this. Basically, the motion is updating something that is outdated, hasn't been looked at in several years. This is not targeting just council. This is across the board. When I looked at it, the current policy solely speaks to people that are on long-term disability. Before you can even start on long-term disability, you're off for 6 months. That's a long period of time for somebody to have access to all of our city devices and the information that comes with those devices. And information would also include the confidential information that we do receive from time to time. This will also give the CAO and his staff the opportunity to update the policy to get it to where we are in this day and age. A lot has changed since the pandemic started. We're in a very hybrid working environment now. At the beginning of the pandemic, we had all of our staff pretty much working remote from home. So I would expect that this motion is also going to provide some clarity in those situations as we move forward. So that's the intent behind this. I know I've been reached out by a couple of media outlets, and they were hoping there was more of a story to this, but unfortunately, that's essentially what it comes down to. This is not targeting any one person. This just happens to be the timing that this type of situation has come up, where I made some inquiries and then realized the situation that we are in with the current policy.
Okay. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you. Through you, Acting Mayor Barry Ward, to staff. And I'll direct it at the clerk's office at this time, and or if more appropriate to CEO Prowse. So with the commentary being about this wishing to be comprehensive of council and staff, do staff feel that they have an outdated policy or looking to amend this? I'm not aware of any cause or of concern around breach of privacy or misuse of technology. I would typically see that staff would identify the need for their own policy review and update. So do staff have an opinion about the need for this?
Mr. Prowse.
Through you, Acting Mayor Ward, to Councillor Kungle, thank you for the question. I believe in staff's approach to this. If we felt that the policy was outdated, or requiring updating, we would proceed with that. Our approach to management, as it relates to leave of absences, unpaid or otherwise, continues to be around flexibility and discretion. Management and supervisors have the ability to remove or take away devices and access as is required. There certainly are certain circumstances where it benefits the corporation to have an employee who may be specialized or have specific skills or knowledge to remain to be available and accessible beyond what might be considered normal course of business. But I would say from a management perspective, we comply with, I think, what the intent of this approach is, and I can only really speak to staff. I think I would leave the council commentary up to council.
Thank you. My only comment would be, unless I'm wrong, I'll ask the clerk to correct me. I've got full confidence in how staff are operating. I wouldn't be supporting this motion with the inclusion of the staff. I would leave that to CEO Prowse to bring something forward as needed. I also won't be supporting the motion as printed. There are nuances here, again, where even specific to some of the content quoted in the motion, I believe it's item number 4, be relieved from all their city duties and responsibilities. I believe we've seen situations with this council and previous council, maybe even with the beginning of the term of this council, where we've had both paid and unpaid leaves of absences. Regardless of the period of that time, I don't believe there is any cause for concern about the retention of technology. I don't recall there being a request for technology to be submitted. I'm not aware of any concern around how council is currently operating. But around being relieved from other city duties and responsibilities, my understanding is that as an elected official, even if we're on a leave, we're not necessarily excused from council. And regardless of that, I guess if there was a concern, we'd be using the tools at hand, be it integrity commissioners filing, should there be an issue with misuse of technology or access. But regardless of that, we don't have a policy, but we do have a provision in the Municipal Act where we need to get permission from council if we're going to miss 3 months of service. I don't believe we've hit that threshold, and I wouldn't support the motion because it actually doesn't work with an amendment to the Act.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson and Councillor Rietma.
Actually, Deputy Mayor Ward, I actually just notified. It was for Clr Aylwin who had to sign up. That
Okay,
it wasn't
sorry,
me.
I have trouble seeing the screen. So Councillor Aylwin and then Councillor Rietma.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I appreciate it. I know it's hard to focus in on the Zoom participants as well, so I was trying to get your attention there. Thank you, Councillor Thompson, for that. I have a few questions for staff on this, to CAO Prowse or to the clerk. So was the practice of returning technology put into place when former Councillor Shipley was on an unpaid leave and running in an election?
So is that-
Through you,
Yep.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Aylwin. No, former Councillor Shipley was able to keep his technology for the duration of his leave of absence. He returned the equipment once he resigned from council.
Okay, thank you. And do we know of any best practices in other municipalities, whether this type of policy is in place in other municipalities around returning electronic devices while on an unpaid leave?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Aylwin. In speaking with other clerks, because we're a bunch of us are kind of in similar situations, there are no policies or practices in place to deal with technology or leaves of absence of members of council. It is just a best practice for a member of council to take a leave of absence when they are potentially running for another office. And so there is nothing documented by other municipalities. And our practice has been in the past, as I mentioned with your previous question, is to allow members of council to keep their technology until they have to resign if they're elected to the other office.
Okay, and my last question to staff on this is, it has to do with paragraph 2 specifically about members being bound by the city council and committee member code of conduct. Are members on an unpaid leave or a paid leave for that matter not bound by the code of conduct?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Aylwin. Given that the member is just on a leave of absence, unpaid or paid, and speaking with the Integrity Commissioner, they are still bound by the provisions of the council and committee code of conduct.
Okay, thank you. My last question, if Acting Mayor Ward will allow it, is to you specifically around continuity of business at the city, and if you feel like your work as acting mayor would rely on communication with the Mayor Lehman who's on an unpaid leave of absence, whether you feel it's important in terms of business continuity to keep that connection and to have Mayor Lehman have access to those devices.
Sure, and I mean, Mayor Lehman made it very clear when he took his leave of absence that I'd be able to call him at any time to ask him things. I haven't had occasion to do so. I did when Councillor Shipley was off on his leave of absence. He said mainly the same things. I took over the responsibilities for Ward 3 at the time, and I did reach out to him several times. I cannot honestly remember whether I called him on his city device or sent him an email at the city. I just can't remember anymore. But often quite a few times I'd reconnect with him and say, somebody complained about a stop sign at this intersection. Have you dealt with that already, or is this new? And things like this. So I was in frequent contact with them. I honestly can't remember what technology we were using. That was a few years ago.
That's fair. I appreciate that answer. Thank you so much. With those answers and the answers to Councillor Kungol's questions around the policy change specifically, I can't support this item. I appreciate Councillor Harvey's explanation, but I can't help feel like this is a partisan motion, and I think it's unfortunate that it's before council this evening. I think there are more pressing issues that council has to deal with. I just don't like the way that this has gone about, so I will not support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rietma?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. And I guess this is a question to staff, Mr. Prowse. The existing IT policy, it is applicable to staff, but it's also applicable to council members, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
CEO Prowse?
Through you, Acting Mayor Ward, to Councillor Rietma, I'll defer questions around the policy itself to Mr. Nolan, who's here from IT.
Okay.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward. It does in terms of the scope. At the beginning of the policy, it does indicate staff, council, and members of council and committees.
Okay, thank you. I guess my follow-up question to that is, we have a fairly detailed motion in front of us. Is that motion sufficient? Does it cover everything? Does it do what needs to be done? And I guess maybe what I'm driving at is that the normal process would be that staff would give us a report and say, our current policy is inadequate, and for these reasons, this is what we recommend. But this is going the other way. So I guess I'm wondering if the content of this policy that's being suggested here is appropriate and comprehensive enough. I don't know whether Mr. Prowse would like to answer that, or Mr. Nolan.
Through you, Acting Mayor Ward, to Councillor Rittman, certainly Mr. Nolan can feel free to chime in. I would echo for council that staff's opinion is our approach is both flexible and discretion. My interpretation of the direction here tonight, if passed, certainly from a staff perspective, it would really eliminate that discretion and flexibility and would in fact mandate that we follow a much tighter policy and procedure than we have today. So in that sense, it certainly gives us clarity of direction. My concern would be that is actually limiting some of our flexibility and discretion, which we typically apply.
Thank you. And as a result of that answer, I think I'm not going to be supporting this recommendation. I do think that staff needs the flexibility, and I think that it hasn't been shown to be a problem at this point. And I think it's adequate what we have. And if staff at any point feel that it is not adequate what we have, then I'm sure that they would bring this to our attention and ask us for some direction on that. So with that, I don't think that it's appropriate to do this at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rietma, any other comments or questions? Councillor McCann?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I am going to support this, and I think that with recent, newspaper articles, that information has, came from this office to there. I think tightening up the procedures is probably a good thing, and I think that
Point of order.
Yes.
Through you, Acting Mayor Barry Ward, just with reference to media and whatnot, I don't see how that's applying to necessarily use of technology in a staff policy or council policy. Maybe just to clarify, but I'm not sure if that's off topic.
Okay, maybe I'll let Councillor McCann continue.
I think I wavered. I didn't really get off the rails there, but I appreciate the sensitivity to this, so I'll be a little more direct. And I think tightening up, we're a growing city. We've got a lot of moving parts, and I quite think this was actually well thought out by Councillor Harvey. And I think that moving forward, this is not going to harm the organization. It's actually just going to make it more efficient. So you've got my full support, Councillor.
Okay, we're only allowed to speak once, so is any other comments or questions? Councillor Harris? Natalie Harris.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. So my comment would be just in support of Councillor Harvey. Our perception wasn't to limit, it was to clarify what we identified as gaps in the policies. And as far as I was aware, with respect to the City Council, there isn't really, is it in writing that that's what is that part of a policy, I guess, to the clerk? I guess, of course, that's something that we would continue through and hopefully, but I don't know if that's actually written anywhere, is it?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Natalie Harris. In speaking with the Integrity Commissioner, and I'm just making sure I'm getting your question right, are you asking that the Code of Conduct is still in effect for a member that is on leave?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we're not duplicating. My understanding was that sentence number 2 wasn't duplicating something. It was actually just putting it in writing and being clear about it.
So the Code of Conduct does apply to members of council, whether they are actively working or if they are on leave. I guess your statement could be taken as reinforcing that provision. but the code of conduct would still be in effect for a member of council, whether or not they're active or on leave.
Thank you. No, that's great. And I guess just in response to Councillor Rietma, you said there isn't any proof of not following the more lax version of this type of policy, but Councillor Harvey has already stated that there is proof that he's seen that there really, this should be tightened up. This could just be literally clearly for clear is the way we should have things set out like this. So these are your answers. If you're finished or you're on a leave or whatever within this motion, this is the policy, and it just makes it kind of more clear to me was what I definitely perceived when I was talking to Councillor Harvey about this.
Councillor Morales, I'm assuming. Sorry, I missed you.
Yeah, thank you. To Mr. Nolan, is Mr. Nolan in the room? Yeah.
He is.
Yes, perfect. Mr. Nolan, would it be possible for city staff to keep email access to members on paid or unpaid leave internally, but just stop access for outbound emails?
Mr. Nolan?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward. So they could only send or receive email internally, are you asking, or?
Send or receive internally and only receive external emails, but not send emails external.
Technically, we could probably set up a rule like that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So technically, and the reason is why. So I guess I'll kind of take my question to a comment. I see a bit of what Councillor Harvey's coming from. If you're on unpaid leave of absence and you're conducting business externally, maybe speaking not on behalf of the corporation, but on behalf of your office, of your role, I could kind of see a bit of the confusion. So if there was a way from a technology perspective that the councillor or the member of council still has their device for sure, still has the email. So if somebody in IT reaches out, somebody in the clerk's office said, hey, we've been doing this thing for a while, I need your quick input. And or something like that that's pertinent, I think that's fine. And then if they're getting resident emails, this policy doesn't speak to what happens when they go on leave of absence. So I know in the past, a previous ward and council went on leave of absence for a bit. I don't know how that was handled in terms of, was it like the colleague to his left or right that picked up the emails? I know Councillor Ward picked up a bit of then Councillor Shipley's email and residence constituency. So this doesn't actually cover that. So if we kind of just cut off the email, and if we're trying to become clear, there's ambiguity as to what happens to resident inquiries or anything else. So that's why I'm going towards a language of let them keep the email internally only. So that way, they get the email, they go, okay, I'm going to send this to my colleague. If the council at the time decides that a councillor colleague that absorbs the constituency work for that time. So I understand the intent, and that's why I kind of paused and I was hearing my colleagues. I could probably be a little bit more supportive if it was an external email pause. I wouldn't call it suspension, I would call it a pause. And if it's technically possible, I think internally it's still appropriate.
Okay. Oops, I think Mr. Nolan wanted to say something more.
Just one thing, if we were to do this, a challenge might be a external citizen, let's say, does a reply to multiple, like a reply all. The person who we block emails would not receive that, even though it would appear they were on that email. And the rest of the chain would reply all, and the member may see that email, but then if they try to reply all, it will not go back to the citizen. It does get messy trying to apply this and still have that member or staff be able to work without all these extra things to think about when they're replying, or a citizen to be aware of or not aware of, depending on their status of on leave or not on leave.
Yep, fair enough. I appreciate that, Mr. Nolan.
Okay. Councillor Thompson, you're the last one.
Through you, Mayor, Acting Mayor Ward, to the clerk. Is it possible to give me a list of in the last 2 terms, the members who have taken a leave?
Off the top of my head, it would be former councillors Brassard and Shipley, CAO Proust, when he was a member of council, and Councillor Natalie Harris took a short leave last summer.
And did any of them, or were any of them asked to return electronic devices?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Thompson. As far as I'm aware, none of them were, the ones I know, none of them were asked to return their equipment or their technology.
Another question. To you, CAO Prouse, and sorry to put you on the spot, I was just thinking about it. What would you say is the number one leave amongst staff and council? I know there would be two different answers, obviously, in the number of councils to staff, but would you, and if it's a personal thing and you can't say, like, because of confidentiality of staff, then I respect that, but would you have an idea of our number one?
CEO Proust?
Through you, Acting Mayor Ward, to Councillor Thompson, I'm going to take a shot in the dark because I don't have the data, but I would suspect it's probably maternity leave for staff.
Okay. Yeah, see, I find that a little problematic where it almost becomes discriminatory against, because I would imagine that we have staff members that, well on maternity leave or parental leave, whatever term, probably are still an asset to the corporation, and like you had mentioned earlier with specialty or important positions, so that's a little troubling. And my last question is to the clerk, through you, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Good.
Is there any business today that could require Mayor Lehman to return if needed?
Ms. Cook?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Thompson, there's always the potential that there could be something that crops up that may require Mayor Lehman's attention. For example, him and I are signing authorities for the corporation, and he may have missed signing a document, and to keep that continuity, we would have to call him back in to have him sign possibly. And also just there could be questions that arise that are directed to the mayor specifically, and he may be the only one that has the knowledge base to provide an answer. So there has to be that ability, even while on a leave of absence, to reach out to him.
Perfect. With the answers I got, I just find it, I can't support this the way it's written. Now, I agree we need to look at policies and procedures and stuff, and that broader conversation is always welcome. But I think right now isn't the time to do that. For going forward to another council and starting off the term, but just looking at, we've had members in this term that didn't, have to return their devices. So for that reason, I won't be supporting it. I would prefer a consistent approach.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Jim Harris, I missed you earlier. Oops, sorry.
If I have an opportunity to interrupt, given the new information that I've just learned that I wasn't aware of, I will withdraw my motion.
Okay, is that, maybe just check with the clerk, that's technically possible? I just don't know how it works. Yep, they can withdraw it?
Yes, because as long as both the mover and seconder agree to withdraw it, they both can withdraw it.
Okay, so Councillor Harris, you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
We weren't aware of that before. That
Okay.
portion, yeah.
Then it's withdrawn. Sorry, Jim. Okay. Okay. So that is withdrawn. And that brings an end to our our direct motion. So now we're going into, we have no presentations tonight. We are now at inquiries. So anybody have any inquiries of staff? Wow, that's the first. No inquiries of staff. Okay, announcement. Does anybody have any announcements? To Councillor Rietman and Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I have one announcement. We have a neighborhood meeting on April the 20th at 5 o'clock, and it has to do with 95 Cook Street. And for residents in that area, they'll recognize that as being the former St. Giles Church property where there is a development proposal. You need to register on the city's website in order to attend. It's a virtual meeting. So that's April the 20th at 5 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you. I have a few announcements. I'll share them now. They're typically around the week of April 20th, but with the long weekend holiday, I didn't want to miss the opportunity to thank staff, but also announce that I'm not sure about other members of council getting a lot of questions about the LDD, formerly known as the gypsy moth, and approaches. There is a free webinar booked on April the 20th. This has got a wealth of great information through the City of Barrie website. You can search and find for that. I'll post it on my Kungle Cares Facebook page, but I know communications has gone out and several residents are looking for that. So perhaps fellow members of council, we can help to push that out. But April 20th, I believe 6:30 p.m., there's a free webinar that will take residents through how to approach managing that if it is impacting your property. And I believe more to come from city staff shortly on that. The other one is there's a really great community event happening on April 22nd and 23rd at 9 Churchill Drive at My Local Leaf. This is a Living Green initiative for Earth Day. Please check out their website. I mention it because through that collaboration, some city programming will also be highlighted. Residents, if you're going there, check out Living Green's website. Native species will be sold. There'll be a tour of the garden, some communications about opportunities to get more involved. Several organizations will also be supporting a sign up. So if you want to volunteer or get connected to, I believe, Urban Pantry, the Janice Lake and Community Garden, or even pick up your registration form for the City of Barrie's Communities in Bloom program, which is also free, and we're welcoming you to showcase your gardens again this year. You can pick them up at the garden. That's April 22nd and 23rd. Specific to Ward 3, I've got two announcements. April 24th, the Sunday, from 12 till 2, we're doing a spring cleanup. You are invited to join me at the East Bayfield Community Park, so behind the basketball courts, for cleanup. Thank you to sponsors and the City of Barrie for making that happen, and a great shout out to, I believe, a Cleanup Barrie, Jen and the group there. If you didn't get to register an event in your community, you can reach out to me, but there are opportunities to still kind of get involved and do some cleanup initiatives. In Ward 3, thank you to residents and also Kira Brooks with Barrie Police. We've had a significant vandalism issue happening over the weekend. It amazes me how it happened, but just to get awareness out there, 2 points. We've had a couple of large community Canada Post boxes tipped over on Livingston Street East. It must have taken some effort to do it, but we've also seen a lot of vandalism to utility boxes. So this is letting residents know if you reach out. We have issued tickets to Canada Post to actually fix those areas, but if they do affect you around access to your mail service, and you are looking for an update, I believe they are trying to have those two sites serviced on Brownwood Drive and Livingston Street East and close to Stoller Boulevard and Livingston Street East. They should be fixed by April 14th, and we will do a follow-up, and thank you to Doug Shipley's office for working with me on that. On that note, because we are seeing quite a lot of tagging still in the area and graffiti, as well as vandalism, some great conversation and maybe a public message through Barrie Police. they have an online tool where you can register your personal home security cameras. And so that helps to look up should anything happen in a neighborhood, if there's any resources through Barrie Police by being able to identify if you've got a camera, helping us to kind of get down to resolving some of these issues. So again, just through the Barrie Police website, there is a new online tool, and residents are welcome to go in and actually register that they've got a camera. That might help as a different approach to a community watch. And I think that's everything. Just congratulations to our junior Sharks. I believe we came out with a silver medal for our under 15 group. I hope I got that right. I didn't have it in front of me, but really great performance through our Sharks. A great hockey season, and thanks for showcasing that, and to facility staff that also hosted, I believe, a provincial hockey tournament at our facilities over the weekend.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Councillor Harris and Councillor McCann. Actually, Councillor McCann first, I think, then Councillor Harris. Or Councillor Harris first.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Just wanted to take a quick moment to thank and recognize staff. Just on April 7th, it closed, but the Recreation, Sport, and Community Grant Program, which is something that this council had moved, and it actually passed on consent, so I didn't get a chance to mention it when it came through last time, but it's a great addition, and we know that we had some groups come to us, and we didn't have a really good process for adjudicating, asks for recreation, sport, and community type grants. And so it's wonderful to have this process. And I know it closed, and I know May 11th, there'll be some awards from this grant. So looking forward to hearing who is the first recipient of the Recreation, Sport, and Community Grant Program funding. So thank you again to staff for putting this together in such a fulsome way and in such a quick order. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jim Harris. Councillor McCann, did you have something?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I am just going to have a quick message about my Ward 10's Town Hall meeting. I gave everybody a mail out, I think in December. So there may be some people that have not remembered, but it's going to be Wednesday, April the 20th at 6 p.m. It is going to be virtual. Unfortunately, I had to book this back in 2021. You can go to my political website, which is mccanbarry.com, and there'll be a link there sometime later this week, early next week. And special guests will be Michael Prowse will be there representing city staff. There'll be traffic police there, and I'm going to be inviting Tracy McPhee. She's the new principal at Maple Ridge High School. It's a new high school that we have in Ward 10, and hopefully she'll attend. Every council member, you're always more than welcome to attend. It is virtual, and we've got a lot going on in Ward 10. And it's a growing sector of the city, and I expect to have a good, healthy group there. And it's a great way to introduce yourself to me, a great way to ask your questions, and a great way to ask questions of the police, Michael, and or Sim County District School Board. Thank you. And I guess it's Easter this weekend, so just God bless all citizens in Barrie, and have a great Easter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Any other announcements? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Just quick comment, tomorrow's planning meeting, 7 p.m. Virtually, so anybody who's interested, and city building, but specifically planning, we're going to have the Huronia file from Ward 9. I believe there's might also be one on Somerset and Ward 6. So anybody watching this meeting, don't forget if you want to watch that. If not, it comes back to council at a later time.
Thank you. If that's it, I've got a few announcements. One, I'd like to proclaim April 12th, 2022 as Education and Sharing Day. A reminder that the Mayor's Innovation Awards virtual ceremony will be held this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. You can watch the award ceremony that discovers and celebrates stories of strength, creativity, and adaptation from across the community. For more information, visit investbarrie.ca/innovation awards. The city is looking to update its waterfront and marina strategic plan and wants to hear from you. Complete the surveys at buildingbarrie.ca/waterfront plan, all one word, waterfront plan, before today, and share your vision for the future of Barrie's waterfront. So today's the deadline for that. The City of Barrie is working to improve the city's wayfinding system, which includes signage and similar directional tools that helps you to identify where you are, find out what you are looking for, and confirm that you have arrived at your desired destination. The city wants to hear about your experience navigating around Barrie using the existing signage to find parking and access specific destinations. The deadline for feedback is this Thursday. Take the survey at buildingbarrie.ca/wayfinding strategy. Wayfinding strategy, all one word. Run, jump, or dive into spring with the city's recreation programs. Registration is open for spring and summer programs, including summer camps for children and youth. Try something new and choose from hundreds of affordable fitness, swimming, sports, and dance classes or creative arts programs. Discover all the programs at play.barrie.ca. The City of Barrie Recreation and Cultural Services Department is offering Easter activities for families across the city. Over this holiday weekend, all Easter offerings will operate as a drop-in activities, and fees will be $2 per person or free entry with the non-perishable food donation to support the Barrie Food Bank. Please visit barrie.ca for more information. There are some city service updates to be aware of. This Friday, April 15th, and Sunday, April 17th, there will be no Barrie Transit service. Transit will run regular weekday service on Monday, April 18th. Visit barrie.ca/transit notices for more information. This Friday, April 15th, is Good Friday. There will be no garbage, organics, recycling, or yard waste collection in Barrie. It will take place the next day, Saturday, instead. Collection will take place as usual on Monday, April 18th. Visit barrie.ca curbside collection for more information. The recycling depot at the lower gate area of the city landfill site will open for the season on April 9th. It has opened. Hours of operation are Tuesday to Saturday, 8:30 to 3:30 p.m. Items accepted are recyclable materials that do not carry a disposable fee, such as tires, e-waste, blue or green box material, green bin organics, cardboard, and scrap metal. Household hazardous waste is accepted on Saturdays only. For more information, visit barrie.landfill. And just a reminder, as Councilor Morales pointed out, tomorrow night we have city building at 6, planning committee at 7, and we do not meet next Monday for Easter Monday. Bylaws, Councilor Harris.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. It's moved by myself, Councillor Jay Harris, and seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bills 26, 27, 28, and 29.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Harris, Councillor Jim Harris, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 26, 27, 28, and 29. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Harris? Jim? Yep.
Doing so well. Moved by myself, Councillor Jay Harris, and seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson. Confirmation bylaw, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 30.
Moved by Councillor Jim Harris, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 30, the confirmation bylaw. All in favor? Unanimous. Meeting? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Harris? Councillor Harris? We're adjourned.